This is your Chargers linebacker, Dan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning into the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, NFL Week 15. Chargers return home to welcome the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In my opinion, a very pivotal matchup as it relates to the overall AFC standings, the playoff rankings, as we inch ever so closer towards the end of the season. And the Chargers, coming off their tough loss against the Chiefs, they need to get back in the win column as quickly as possible, in my opinion. And there's a lot to get into as it relates to all these matchups because, Dan, we're talking about a very, very potent offense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that are capable of putting up points. And this Chargers defense is going to have to be ready to play. But before we get into any of that, Dan Wolkenstein, how are you feeling, number one? And number two, I'm very happy to get into the little nugget that we have on this show today in addition to everything else.
I am good. I'm a little nervous, but I'm good. Not only am I nervous for this upcoming matchup against the high-flying Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you mentioned it. This is a spicy one. This is a hot matchup, if you will, a hot one.
What a segue.
And you said nugget. How about chicken wing? I decided, you know what? Let's have some fun with this episode. And so I've got some hot ones for those who are not familiar with the show. Eat insanely spicy foods as you discuss a topic, whatever. I've got three. I've got the classic, the barbacoa, and the last dab. 2, 4, and then 11 out of 10 throughout the episode. I'm going to try to do this episode while we eat some wings with the hot sauce and bear through. So,
mind you, this is Dan Wolkenstein's idea 5 minutes before this show is starting. So if you see Dan in a layer of sweat kind of pacing around his window screen as it stands right now for those that are watching on YouTube, and maybe even trying to wrap the show up early today, there's a reason, and he has nobody to blame but himself. But this was his idea that he wanted to do this. So
look,
we're going to see how this goes, and it's going to make the show a lot more fun.
We talked about the pressure that these players are on. I figured, why not turn up the heat on this one as well? Wow. And let's get
Checking
crazy.
Off boxes.
So folks in the chat, let us know how you're doing. If you want to join in, go get some hot sauce and join in on the festivities here. Leave a comment in the chat while you're here. Let us know, what do you think happens with this game? Who wins and who is the MVP as the reason why they win? Jake, you said it. Chargers, rough, tough loss against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. But you saw a lot of improvements and a lot of things that have people excited. There are also things that have people a little bit nervous. Probably first and foremost is the one Justin Herbert, who is battling multiple injuries, all of which he has said are not as bad as he had earlier in the season. But this Chargers team is coming in here. I'm not sure it's a must win, but they need to get a win to kind of take off the pressure as they can get firmly into the playoff race. They still have a 90-something%. But, Jake, before we get to all of the week 15 matchups and predictions, let's talk about our friends, Pay the Bills.
I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of up to $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Chargers defense has another tough task, and it feels like it's throughout the season. It's either a vaunted offense or vaunted defense. Chargers defense goes up against an offense that surprisingly, don't look now, 5th in scoring, 3rd in yards. This team is moving, and they are pretty balanced as well. 6th in passing, 7th in rushing yards. This Broncos, wow. This Bucs team with Baker Mayfield, a little bit of a renaissance here, if you will. You're used to talking about the Bucs defense, but this year, their defense isn't bad, but it's the offense that is carrying them so far to their division lead at this point.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield is having a pillar year for himself with the amount of yards and touchdowns that he has thrown for himself. And obviously, even for certain weapons that he has lost through this year, Mike Evans is set to be healthy for this upcoming matchup. Cade Otton has turned out to be a great weapon for them in the tight end spot, and obviously the combination of Bucky Irving and White at the running back position has been big for them. So it's a 1-2 punch that they have, and especially when it comes to utilizing their running backs in the screen game. That's how they like to work them in and create drives and move things down the field. So they're very creative as it relates to moving the ball down the field, specifically through the air. And that's something that the Chargers team is going to have to look out for. And traditionally, yes, as it relates to the Chargers defense and how they stack up against traditional passing teams, more so than not, they have come out on the better side of that. But much like Cincinnati, Dan, this kind of feels a little bit like that game in terms of how Tampa Bay schemes, how they push that ball down the field. They're capable of running up the score if they need to, and they can become multiple on offense if they want to be. I could totally see this game being an Air Mayfield type of game, or I could totally see it shift to Bucky Irving just pounding the rock on the ground and playing keep away with the Chargers, much like everything started with the Baltimore Ravens and they're so followed with the Falcons type of game plan that they had. I don't think that Kansas City got a chance to really execute that game plan that well. I think the Chargers schemed well for that, and they're going to have to do that, and they're going to have to be ready for that for this upcoming matchup against Tampa Bay. I've said it during our Kansas City post-game recap that I felt that this game was a must-win. I don't want to get any closer to that 7 seed if I'm the Chargers than need be. Obviously, the Denver Broncos game is a must-win, in my opinion, but I'm of the opinion that both of these games are pivotal. Get them while they're at home. Take when you can get them. Create as much separation as you can in the AFC conference in order to secure your spot in the playoff race.
Yeah, this is going to be a big matchup. And I think we should start off with Chargers defense versus the Bucs offense, because I think that's going to be the juicy matchup, the spicy one, so to speak. Don't look now. This Chargers team has gone up against the number one team in red zone percentage on offense, which is the Baltimore Ravens, has gone up against the number 2 red zone team in the Cincinnati Bengals, and is now facing the number 4 best red zone percentage offense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then to make it apropos, Chargers have gone up against all 3 of the top third down percentage conversions in the NFL. Kansas City Chiefs, number 1, Baltimore Ravens, number 2, and your Tampa Bay Buccaneers are number 2, with Cincinnati Bengals actually at number 5. This Chargers defense has a big, big matchup. And you look at what this Chargers defense has been predicated on, you take you take it. Regardless of who the offense is, you like your chances on defense for the Chargers. We'll see what happens with Denzel Perryman. We'll see what happens with a secondary. But, Jake, are there any kind of, off the top of your head, big rocks as to themes that would constitute a win or loss on this side?
I mean, yeah, if you allow the running game to get going, which it got going for Tampa Bay late last week for them, it's going to be a problem, because you've seen that happen. Anytime that you can allow an opposing offense to get multiple, it's going to be problems for the Chargers. Now, for the Chargers standpoint, the defense has been good at a number of different times throughout this year. There are some weaknesses that I believe in the last few weeks have been a little bit of cracks in the defense, and namely so what you saw in the Cincinnati game, obviously in the Baltimore game for how that ball control was, and Derrick Henry just being a mutant. Thankfully for the Chargers, not all teams have a Derrick Henry in regards to them and that type of combination with Lamar Jackson. But if you allow this team to get their running game going, it's going to be tough for the Chargers, because if that's the case, Tampa Bay is going to be able to put together some of these long drives, keep the defense guessing, and you're going to be in a position where this Chargers team is going to feel like it has to score at almost every single drive. And if anything that we've seen as of late as it relates to this Chargers offense, Greg Roman's already addressed it. They have to be able to start faster than they have over the last few weeks. Normally, early in the season, that was not their issue. They were able to score plenty of times on their opening drives in previous weeks. And lately, they just have not been able to do that. And you have to play 4 quarters of football, more specifically on the offense. We've seen the defense do it, but the offense needs to come to play. And you could very well find yourself in a shootout in this game. And if that's the case, Chargers need to be able to put things in the end zone, which they just have had a hard time doing over the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Bucs offense. You mentioned Cade Otton, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rashad White, Sterling Shepard. I mean, these guys are all producing for them. And then I think from a rushing perspective, what's probably most impressive is it's kind of spread between Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving's been fun to watch this year. 6 touchdowns by himself with over 700 yards already as a rookie. And don't look now, but he's also got 36 receptions coming out of the backfield. So the running back specifically, both Rashad White and Bucky Irving combined have 77 receptions as a running back tandem.
It's pretty
so
good.
Look for a lot of that. Running backs, tight ends. That's where you're going to see a lot of offense for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Jake, I'm starting off 2 out of 10. This is the classic
2 out of 10. Okay.
Garlic Fresno. Hot ones. I'll show the camera here. This is what we're doing. Oh, there we go. Pray for me. Jake, who from the Chargers perspective, who are the kind of the key defensive players or matchups that you're either excited for or worried about?
Defensive players?
Defense for the Chargers, offense for the Bucs.
If the Chargers defensive line can bring the pressure the way it brought it last week, I feel very confident in it. You're hoping, looking at the injury report, that you get the likes of Tony Jefferson back, who's been limited in practice all week. You're hoping that you get Denzel Perryman back this week, who's also been limited in practice. Those would be 2 big-time returns for this Chargers team. I love the way that Derwin James has been playing the last few weeks. This might have to be another game. You look at the Cade Otton's output. Look at I already hear it. You look at what he did to Travis Kelce last week. This may have to be another position where you shut that part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense down. Take it away. And Derwin James has proven that he is more than capable of doing that. But Tony Jefferson, you go back to that Atlanta game. This, I feel, is another one where if you have another playmaker in the backfield that can do the things that he can do, specifically against wide receivers and coverage, which, unless you're sleeping under a rock, Mike Evans is still an ageless wonder and can still do great things with the football for offense. You would want a weapon like that to help shut them down. The return of Cam Hart last week was tremendous for this team. Tarheeb still building off of his great rookie season that he has had over the last couple of weeks. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, where they're going to put him, because Jesse Minter specifically has so much confidence in Tarheeb still. But collectively, Dan, it's going to start with the defensive line. You got to be able to bring that pressure. And I know from Tampa Bay's standpoint, thankfully for them, Tristan Wirfs is expected to play for this game. Mike Evans is expected to play for this game, even though their practices have been a big-time question mark leading up to this matchup. But you start doing things along the defensive line that you did similarly to Kansas City, then I feel that that's your pathway forward to being able to create pressure, forcing Baker Mayfield into making mistakes, limit what this offense can do downfield, and you could put them in some tough situations that ultimately your offense is going to need to capitalize on.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big, by the way, 2 out of 10, definitely got a little sniff.
I heard a deep breath in the middle of my talking there.
Yep.
Are you doing all right?
I'm doing okay. That one actually tastes pretty good. I'm not suffering yet. I'm ready for the next one, to be honest.
Pace yourself, Wolkenstein.
I know. On defense, this seems like a big box game to me. Like, this is a big front 7, front 8 type game, where I think you're going to have to see not only Derwin James, like you mentioned, but I think Deion Henley's going to have another big game. This is a big, again, we're talking running backs out of the backfield and tight end. Those are the 2 that I'm worried about. Even Mike Evans and folks downfield, like, their yards per reception isn't much. This is a short to medium style game, typically, that the Tampa Bay Bucs play. And so if you can tackle, if you can cover, and you can rush, chances are you're going to do well against this team. But, Denzel Perryman, big against the run. Absolutely. But in coverage, that's not where you want him. So this is a Junior Colson. This is a Troy Dye. This is a Deion Henley type game. Tony Jefferson would be great to have, just as instincts inside the box. But that defensive front is going to have its work cut out for it today. So I think the linebackers is probably what's going to have the most pressure. And so if you can bring in a Derwin to help facilitate some of that and not let a linebacker be on Auten, for example, you're feeling pretty good. I think the linebackers are going to be a stress point for sure. And Jesse Minter is probably looking at everything in front of him. If we can keep everything in front of us, keep that shell on top like you've done, and you can force some turnovers, make him go down the entire field, I like the Chargers' chances. But again, this is an efficient offense. And you let them continue drives, which they have done all season, and they've also been dynamic in the red zone, which Chargers defense have been good there too. That's why this side of the matchup, the side of the ball, is probably what I'm most excited for. There might be some more variables on the other side when we talk about the Chargers offense versus the Bucs defense, but this is good on good, or great on great if you want to talk about this year. So I like Jesse Minter's chances in a bounce back game for sure. This is a big game. Another division leader, another winning record at home, your second to last home game of the season. I expect Chargers fans to absolutely show out. Folks in the chat, folks commenting, if you're going to be there, put a hand up. Let us know. I like this is a style of this is a matchup that I think the Chargers do better with, in my opinion, than high flyers on the outside, which Mike Evans is. But I like Cam Hart against him. Big physical. I like Tarheeb Still as like the smaller guy on the outside if you need him to. This side doesn't worry me as much as can the Chargers offense continue what it was building on last week? Because that's where the question marks have been so far almost the entire season. And again, go look at what this Chargers record would be this season if they scored 20. They would have won both Kansas City games, which is wild. So anything else on this side, Jake, before we switch to Chargers offense versus the Bucs defense?
Daniel Popperdin just releasing his tweet right now. Very fitting. Latest injury news. Perfect, because Justin Herbert was a full participant in practice today and officially comes off the injury report. In case anybody had any doubts, which I don't think many did, given we know the warrior spirit that is Justin Herbert, that he was going to be out there regardless of his status.
He was getting beat up last
week. Yes. So here's the official game status from Chargers Twitter right now. Questionable. Denzel Perryman, Ladd McConkey. Out Will Dissly and Jalen Reagor, who I don't think that out list surprises anybody, given what their status was leading up to this week, given what we heard. Dan, that's another thing that we maybe want to highlight on maybe more so when we get into the offense for this Chargers team. Stone Smart stepping up in a big role. We talked about this on Monday after the Kansas City game. I'm excited to see, after his big 3 catches that he had in that game, how Greg Roman is now going to utilize him moving forward, because he's now the guy. Fisk is essentially strictly your blocking tight end. I liked the packages that they used him around, moving with Scott Matlock in the backfield on certain runs and trying to create more space. But he's now going to be your go-to tight end for this game, and presumably for the near future, for however long Will Dissly is going to be out for. So I'm really excited, given the fact that he's got a little bit more athletic ability than Will Dissly, which should open up the playbook a little bit more for the Chargers offensively for what they're able to do.
Stone cold, Stone Smart, for sure, versus Hot Ones Dan right now. I'm at 4 out of 10. We're going
4 out of 10.
Barbacoa, Los Calientes, 4 out of 10. Here we go.
Are you starting to feel the sweats at all? I mean, of all,
I was good. The first one, I'm fine. The first one, I was good. A little spicy, but I like spicy foods generally.
Look, I'm just going to tell you, I know that it's December and it's cold outside, at least for us where we're at.
Yep.
Ooh. If this was August and you were doing this still in that same sweatshirt that you're currently wearing right now, I would have called you an idiot. Like, what are you doing? You're not thinking this through, Dan. Oh, no. My God. I mean, I don't think that you're thinking this through regardless, but, making a good faith effort and making some fun for this show is always great.
Glad for punishment.
I think I asked you, do you have some milk on standby?
I have a leftover of my coffee. It's okay. We're good. We're going to get
All
through
right,
this.
moving on.
Jake, talk to us about Stone Cold, Stone Smart while I crush this 4 out of 10.
Jeez. I think I just talked about Stone Smart and my excitement for him in this offense. If we are going to talk about, where do you want to start? You want to start on the offense for the Chargers? Let's start on the offense for the Chargers, because that's, I think, everybody's biggest question mark leading up to this game, and more so the concern that everybody's had over the last couple of weeks. You know, you've seen everything fly to the fence as far as it relates to Greg Roman, and everybody's mixed opinions about him and his game calling. You look at that first half against Kansas City, just it wasn't pretty at all. And then things started going in the second half. As I'm currently saying this, for those who can't see on the screen, Dan is literally like trying his best just to get a breath right now.
I'm fine.
You're turning redder than usual, sir.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Anyways.
Hopefully the Chargers offense stays red.
Anyways, there was an interesting article, Dan, that Daniel Popper dropped earlier this week talking about the Chargers' success in running the ball, that they actually have the 9th best rushing success when they run the ball.
When they run
the ball. So the question loomed in that article, why are the Chargers abandoning the run? Well, I kind of understood overall when you came off of that bye week and you had to adjust things and put it more in Justin Herbert's hand. Now, at that point in time, Justin Herbert was coming off of his ankle injury that he sustained earlier this year. He was healthy. He was able to be mobile, move around in the pocket, put the ball where he needed it to be. Players were getting separation at that point in time. Then you go back a couple of weeks when things started to trend back the other direction. And that was our biggest question coming into this Kansas City game, especially with the Ladd McConkey injury. Who is going to step up? Who is going to separate? And thankfully for Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer and Stone Smart, they found their moments and they were able to step up in a big time scenario when they needed it to. That's why I'll be interested to see how this Tampa Bay defense is going to play the Chargers, because are they going to play in man coverage? I don't know. Dan, this is already a team in terms of points, yardage, what they give up in the passing game is wow. My wow, by the way, was not to the Tampa Bay defense. It was to Dan Wolkenstein's reactions. I have to go off on a quick tangent, Dan. What is the next one that you're going to be doing?
So the next one, again, I have 3. The next one is the last dab, which is, so that was a 4 out of 10. This one just spikes up to 11 out of 10. Made with X pepper, which welcome to the experience, the most extreme version of the last dab. The sauce made ingredients is Smokin' Ed's Curry Pepper X, officially the world's hottest chili, and we push it to the max.
Thanks for the product placement. What's the rating on it?
Oh, it's an 11 out of 10.
If you're watching this on YouTube and you could already see Dan Wolkenstein's reaction to a 4 out of 10, I can't wait for moments from now what's going to happen. Anyways, getting back to the Tampa Bay defense, Dan, they're already coming into this game really, really banged up. Todd Bowles already confirmed that Antoine Winfield is out for this game. That was another big news for them with a knee injury that he suffered last week. Mike Edwards and KJ Britt are also out. They could possibly be missing Christian Azen as well in their secondary. He's officially questionable leading up to this game. So they're already at virtually at the bottom of their depth chart as it relates to their secondary players goes. So I'm hoping that as it relates to the Chargers, how you're going to scheme up this game. Do you need to go back to having the running game be a little bit more of a pillar? Yes, but you need to have the running game be more successful on early down situations, because too early, the Chargers have been put in, too often, the Chargers have been put in 3rd and long situations. I go into this game, Dan, and I start thinking again about what went wrong in the Atlanta game as it relates to Justin Herbert not having a good day, outside of Ladd McConkey, no wide receivers being able to separate downfield, knowing what we knew about that Atlanta defense coming into this game or that game, we figured that was going to be a perfect game for Justin Herbert to be able to throw it downfield. Didn't end up happening that way. I would hope for the opposite as it relates to going into this matchup, and especially coming off of this game against Kansas City and going back to the drawing board and seeing all the mistakes that you've made. Now, for the Chargers, what do they have to look for in terms of Justin Herbert and his health and what's his mobility is going to be like? I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was in the Kansas City game.
No.
But at the same time, you have to still look out for guys like Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, who Jesse Minter highlighted as being a terrific interior defensive line player, even though if his play is not looking as consistent as it previously was, he's still a force when you put him next to Vita Vea.
He's a force multiplier for sure.
Yes. And then Yaya Diaby coming off the edge. So they've got some guys in the line that are going to try to pressure the interior of this Chargers defensive front. And once again, it still is just, unfortunately, being that type of an issue that the interior of the Chargers offensive line has to protect. And it has to start being able to create lanes on the interior. Whenever you see, most of the time that you see the Chargers' success in the run game, it's behind Rashawn Slater. And there's no surprise to that. But they have to be able to create running lanes elsewhere. And they just were not able to do that until very, very late in the game. And they have to be able to lean on that sooner. And much like I've been talking about with Tampa Bay, learn to become multiple. Learn to confuse this defense. And have a better success rate on early downs. So there's a lot that this Chargers team, I would hope, is going to have to learn from one week to the next. But there's a lot that you could take away from that Kansas City game, and hopefully, against the defense that isn't on Kansas City's level, very susceptible in the secondary, that you're going to be able to find a lot of openings for this Chargers team to attack.
Okay, Jake, I'm doing it.
Are you going to make it?
I'm doing it now so I can enjoy this while we talk.
I'm
literally
waiting for your Maya Rudolph moment. Anytime that I'm going to ask you a question, I'm just waiting for you to, start yelling profanities in my face and saying, let's drop the show. And
okay. Oh my God. Okay. All right, it's getting hotter. Hold on. Okay, so
Dan Wolkenstein is still doing this wearing a damn sweatshirt, if that wasn't stupid enough.
So the nice thing about this this Bucs defense, excuse me. Oh Lord. They kind of divvy out success across the entire team on defense. Quarterback hits, 4 guys above 10. Tackles for loss. Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, Yaya Diaby, Levante David, Anthony Elson, all of them have 5 or more. Quarterback hits, Chris Bradwell, Logan Hall, Vita Vea, Anthony Elson, Kalijah Kancey, and Yaya Diaby all have 7 or more quarterback hits. Oh my God, Jake. So what's going to be hard for this Chargers team is,
wow.
You mentioned the running game's important. Hold on. Is Will Dissly being out is important. That's a big deal. No Will Dissly, no J.K. Dobbins. What will Gus Edwards? What's the name of the running back again? The other one, the rookie.
You could do it.
No, I can't. Oh Lord, this is bad.
I would advise you not to take that third one.
That is the third one.
That was the third one.
That was the third one.
Oh, okay. I did not notice that you had actually went through with that. I still thought you were still on number 4.
No, that was the first one.
Okay, well then that's a good sign then. I thought that was your second one, and if there was one more above that, I was going to say there's no way Dan Wolkenstein's making it through this show.
No, I hope Kamani Vidal has a big game. I got it. But what you saw, man, it hurts anytime I breathe out and talk versus in. Oh, my mouth is walking through the fire of death. Anytime you have a Chargers team that doesn't have all their horses on offense, it's already behind the horse. But when you have a team that's banged up, you have a team that, when you talk about being multiple, it's hard to be multiple. We're not great at anything. Like, you have to be good at a lot of things in order to be multiple, so people don't know what you're going to do. You saw a lot in that game against Kansas City, especially in the second half. It looked dire in that first half. But the way that Chargers offense competed, they got back into it against a really, really good Chiefs defense. It's impressive. And you hope that that's like a stepping stone for this Chargers offense. Yes, we'll see how Justin Herbert looks. But let's say Q takes that and runs with it. You saw DJ Chark. We can mention his name, Jake. He actually had a reception.
He does exist.
Joshua Palmer. That was a big spot for Joshua Palmer to come back. If they can protect Justin Herbert, if the offensive front can stay there, you got to like the chances. This Chargers or this Bucs defense isn't great statistics-wise. You can argue neither is the Chargers. But I feel like the Chargers are still building and they're still getting better. So you hope that Ladd McConkey plays. I think he was a game time decision last week. Game time decision last week ended up not going. And you saw the impact or the loss of him. You hope that this other week gives you more opportunity for him to rest, to get healthy. Because if he's on the field, nobody can guard him, period. And if they do, they're double teaming him and someone's going to be open for a play. Insert Josh Palmer, insert DJ Chark, insert Quentin Johnston, insert Stone Smart. That's the recipe. Get guts moving. Stay with it. Stay with it. Remember that stat that Dana Popper said when they run? That's an if they run. Enable your Chargers team to lean on this defense so that way when the fourth quarter comes, you can cash in and take advantage of it. Oh, the right side of my mouth.
Can you feel it?
Like my lips are like numb. That was like I'm sorry. This is all getting messy.
In case you need dental work on the right side of your mouth, now might be a good time to go. And then you drink coffee.
I think the milky consistency helps me. Okay, I did it. God. My eyebrows are sweating.
Quick question.
Yep.
And I believe I already know the answer to this. I don't believe that you're going to do this again on Chargers Unleashed.
No. Nope.
That's what I thought.
Maybe. I definitely would come prepared with more hot ice water. I feel like my bath needs a plunge in the polar abyss.
You know what, Dan? Normally, I would consider you a very smart individual. Today was not one of your better days. And really,
regretting it. I am regretting it. Thank you.
This is what happens when you put hot ones on the show. So, Dan, I mean, you're looking like the game needs to be over. You look like you're ready to take yourself out of it.
The right side of my mouth is numb. My right nostril is burning somehow. I don't know if I have fork and hot sauce in it, but it's not feeling great.
I think it's time that we move to bowl predictions and game predictions for Dan Wolkenstein's sake.
Bowl predictions on the toilet here soon. Okay, so bold prediction. Chargers offense scores 20. Chargers defense hold them under 20. Chargers win. Your turn.
The best part about this is, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to drag this out just because I had to make an observation. You can tell Dan Wolkenstein is trying to end this show as quickly as humanly possible with the quickest bold prediction I've ever seen him make in 5 years to just say, please just get this over with for me. So unfortunately, because I'm enjoying this so much, I'm not going to do that. So let's actually.
Who makes this shit?
Let's actually, first of all, Dan, there wasn't really a bold prediction in there. You essentially
Chargers offense scores 20.
That's not really a bold prediction. You kind of just jumped to the final score, is what you did.
I didn't say final. I said it scored over 20.
You know how we do this bold predictions. Come on, man.
Okay, all right.
Isolate it. Don't just give me something as it relates to the score.
Kamani Vidal, 70 yards, touchdown.
Was that like the first name that you just thought of?
Yeah,
because that was probably the last player that you mentioned. It was top of mind.
But I do like the way Kamani Vidal runs, though. Honestly, and I don't know what it is, but they aren't staying with Gus Edwards enough, in my opinion. Maybe they do that this game. Maybe this is the game to do it. You would have thought against the Chiefs was the game to do it. It's either him or Quentin. This is one of those moments we talked about, like that second half was a big boy moment for this Chargers team under Jim Harbaugh. This is kind of a big boy moment for Quentin to respond after an uplifting game, an uplifting performance, and impressive performance. Like, you gotta start stacking these. And I know he's an emotional player, but like I think this next level for him is to stay even. And no matter what, be you. Be yourself, stay consistent. And so can you see that? We haven't seen that yet, where you have 2 games back-to-back where he has stellar performances. Do it this week, Q. You're going to have a lot of people raising eyebrows. And again, if the Chargers can get to 9-5, again, I said magic number was 10. If they get to 9 with 3 games left, you feel good. You feel good.
That's better. That's better.
Dude,
that was the explanation.
I literally feel like I have Vicks Vapor Rub in my nostrils.
Okay, bold prediction from my end.
If I was bald, my scalp would be sweating, but my eyebrows are like sweating.
So you took the offensive side of the ball. I was going to go there because I wanted to talk about, regardless whether or not Ladd McConkey is active for this game or not. And as much as I enjoy seeing Ladd McConkey get the ball, I want to see the others make the most of the moment, because it just can't be Ladd McConkey and nobody else out there. I would have liked to have seen Joshua Palmer have a big game. And against this secondary, I believe you could basically put any Chargers pass catcher that you want, and there is a good possibility that they could have a big game. Really. But if it's Ladd McConkey, we know what type of game he's going to have. But on the off chance that he's not, once again, other guys are going to have to step up. But I'll flip it over to the defense for the sake of the argument, because Dan.
Why does my nose still hurt? God.
I would have told you. I tried to tell you it was a bad idea,
bro.
45 minutes ago.
I challenge anyone.
I appreciate you
wants to do this.
I appreciate you taking this one for the team.
Brutal,
and I appreciate you letting everybody watch your suffering for everybody that is watching us on YouTube currently right now. So I'll go to the defensive side of the ball, man.
Help me. Stay on pick 6. I'll help you.
You've been itching for a pick 6.
They got one.
Weeks.
They got one 2
weeks. For weeks. You did get one from Tarheeb. That was the first one that they've had in 6 years.
Scoop and score. Scoop and score.
Scoop and score is what we're going for. No.
Baskin Robbins.
I'll go. No, I'm actually gonna go to Cam Hart for having a big game in this one. Yeah. It's a big task for him. I think, depending on where the Buccaneers are going to want to focus on getting the ball to, whether it's Cade Otton or Mike Evans in the passing game, you can even throw McMillan in there, depending on what the coverage is going to look like. I think this is a game for Cam Hart. I think, obviously, it was a big resurgence for this secondary to have him back last week. I think for this game, he's going to come back a little bit stronger and with a bigger performance. So I'm going to say that whether we're talking about any single wide receiver, depending on what the coverage is, he's not going to allow more than 70 yards, no touchdowns, and he's going to have an interception.
No touchdowns.
No touchdowns. What that means is that the Chargers defensive line is doing what it's supposed to do, and it's getting after it and winning in the trenches if that takes place. But I think Cam Hart's going to have another big game.
You're talking about a Chargers defense, first in points allowed, first in rushing touchdowns allowed. They've only had 5 interceptions, though, this season, which that's not true. I'm sorry. 13, ranks 5th. That was a bad mistake. Dude, things are blurry at this point. God. Chargers offense, though, like, as bad as we've all talked about, 20th in points, 24th in yards. You would have thought it was worse. You really would have. And again, I think this Chargers offense is trending in the right direction, in my opinion. I think this Chargers coaching staff needs to do a better job of staying at what they're good at. And I hope they learned that lesson with the Kansas City game. I would love to see Baker Mayfield go for no touchdowns. I think that would be a huge step up. That'd be big kind of bounce back performance of the Chargers team at home. And imagine what that sets up, Jake. 4 days later.
Oh, yeah.
At home, it would be 9-5 Chargers going up against 8-9 win Broncos team. Winner gets a 10 in theory. Like, that's a showdown. And that home game in division, prime time, Thursday night under the lights, huge. And I'm honestly, that's one thing I'm super stoked up for this game is to see the Chargers fans out there, because this last stretch of games, I have never seen SoFi as electric and as benefiting the Chargers from a home field advantage standpoint since they've been there, period. That includes Carson. That includes SoFi. Win this one. That Broncos game is going to be nuts. Nuts. So, final score, Jake.
Dan, you were just mentioning just a second ago, it's like, oh, I hope Baker doesn't throw for any touchdowns. Well, I find that to be highly unlikely, considering the fact that only twice this year.
I was going to say, you said it, not me.
Yeah. Only twice this year has the Buccaneers scored either 20 points or less. The rest of their games have been extremely high scoring, which reflects what their ranking is offensively and their points offensively for what they're able to put up.
Yeah, they have games of 37, 33, 30, 51, 31, 30. Yeah.
It's crazy. They are a machine when it comes to running up the scoreboard. So putting up points is not a problem for them. Putting up points for the Chargers offensively has been an issue.
Now, real quick though, they were 4-6.
That's the wild part.
And then they went up against the Giants, Panthers, Raiders. So, like, everyone wants to poo-poo the Chargers schedule. You can say the same thing about this Bucs team. And again, they are what their record is. But they have wins against they beat the Lions, which is wild. And they beat the Commanders early in the season. This is week 1 and 2. Then they lost to the Broncos. They've lost to the Falcons. They lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Falcons again. They lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Niners. And then they win against the Giants, Panthers, Raiders.
That should tell everybody that what they need to know about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, because Tampa Bay, again, has no problem putting up points, but they're definitely not flawless as it relates to their record.
No, but you beat the Eagles, Lions, and Commanders. Like, those are 3 huge wins. So which one's going to show up?
Got to assume that the Chargers defense is going to show up. You'd have to assume that, especially if we're thinking about the last, as you mentioned it, the last 3 matchups that they've had with their secondary that they've gone up against. I'm going to say that the Chargers do it, Dan. I'm going to say that the Chargers actually hold the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to 20. And believe it or not, the Chargers are going to find a way to score over 20 points this week. Believe it or not, I'm going to say the Chargers win 23-20 in a very close game. Again, high offensive output because it's going to need to be that way for the Chargers, but 23-20 because the defense is going to do what they do best, and they're going to they're going to keep this vaunted Buccaneers offense at bay for a majority of the game, and it's going to be enough for the Chargers to ultimately pull out a win.
How did a team get to 19? Because my thought was saying 23-19, but then he said 23-20, and I'm like, God, it's too close.
I mean, a variety of different ways they can get there.
Really? I mean, they'd have to have some kind of fluke thing.
You just saw another team do it on Sunday.
True. All right. 23-19. I'll stick with it. 23-19 Chargers win. They get over 20. Hold them to under 20. I feel far more confident in this one than I did against the games, or did with the games against the Ravens, against the Chiefs, against the Bengals. For whatever reason, this one scares me less than those. Now, call me vulnerable. This isn't me being overly optimistic. I'm just being honest about it. Like, in reality, this team is barely above 500. They've played some cupcake teams like the Chargers have. They've squeaked by. But I think this Chargers team is better if they play to their strengths.
Is your confidence level the same as it was going into the Atlanta Falcons game?
No, I think I'm more confident in this one than I am the Falcons game.
Really?
Yeah, I think the Falcons offense scared me more. Even though the statistics aren't there, their playmakers scare me.
Interesting.
Like that, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson especially, Drake London. Yeah, Kirk Cousins kind of like helter-skelter. You don't know what you're going to get, but like if you get Kirk Cousins on fire, you aren't winning. And luckily they didn't. But
I was not expecting that answer. Last question for you, Dan, in terms of confidence level. How confident are you in terms of how your stomach is feeling right now and being able to handle spicy food moving forward?
Well, I was confident in my ability to eat spicy food, but 11 out of 10 snuck up quick. Very much looking forward to ice water as soon as you let me get off the show.
Are you sure? Because I have like 4 questions.
No, you said last question.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Honestly, I feel like I need to mail this to you, and we could just like start taking turns on episodes. That could be kind of fun. I think we're gonna have to do something with this, or something similar to this moving forward. Chargers fans, imagine a crossover, like a big one, hot one style. That could be fun. Stay tuned. Jake, anything else? Big game. Big game. Chargers team already has 3 more wins than last year with 4 games to go. They could essentially, I don't want to say punch their ticket, but if they win this game, you got games that are easily winnable against lottery pick teams right now coming up in your future. So this is big. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm going to up the ante there on your idea of crossover with hot ones. Dan, how about this? How about a live game watch party while doing hot ones? And let's see who we could recruit to come along for the ride.
Okay.
I like that idea.
Coming up to a game near you.
Not for Dan Wolkenstein, though. We may give him a week break just to make sure that he's all right and that he can handle.
My insides might need it.
His digestive tract get back.
Literally, my nose is still. It feels like I have Vic just like slammed up in my nose right now. But my mouth is now able to be felt, so that feels good.
That's progress.
Yes.
Well, for Dan Wolkenstein, we're going to let him cool off, get the hot taste out of his mouth.
Thank you so much.
But the temperature is not turning down as it relates to the Chargers matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As I've said, I think it's a must-win for them to stay ahead in the AFC conference race. In terms of the rest of the teams that are trying to creep back up, I do not see that as a situation that the Chargers should not try, but find themselves in the 7th seed. You wouldn't like to be that close come the end of the season. Let's just knock it out while you can.
Or going up against whoever the 2 seed is.
And it's
Texans.
And it's a game in a lot of ways that the Chargers need to get right on as it relates to their overall play heading into this last leg of the season. So, Dan, I know you've been wanting to do it for the last 15 minutes, but go ahead and take us out.
Thank God for Jake Hefner. You can find him at Jake Hefner. Myself at DanW Sports. I'll be in either an ice bath or the bathroom for the next couple hours. I'm also at Dan W Sports on X. Big hot ones matchup versus the Chargers. This Bucs team is trying to win too. So we'll see if the Chargers team can pull out the victory. But until then, we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed, and enjoy the holidays, everybody. Holiday season is upon us. Talk to you later on the next Chargers Unleashed.